hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 15, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels feared to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride.
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
Leave no doubt tonight. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season.
And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
And now recorded from the CRW studios in Almost Heaven, West Virginia, it's the Country Roads Webcast with your host, Jorden Cruz.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the CRW podcast here for episode 229, ready to preview West Virginia's upcoming Big 12 opener as they hit the road to take on the Kansas Jayhawks this Saturday. Of course, that game coming up on September 20th. It'll be a 6 p.m. kick. It's going to be televised on Fox Sports 1. Both teams coming into the game at 2-1. Kansas wins over Fresno State and Wagner, a loss to Missouri. They are coming off a bye week coming into the game, whereas West Virginia, as we know, just had to play the tough backyard brawl rivalry game. They get the win there to come into this one 2-1 as well. This will be the 14th meeting all time between these two teams. West Virginia 11-2 in the first 13 meetings, so they'd like to keep that positive record rolling in this one. And as we go through the episode here, I'll break it down on each side of the ball. Kansas offense versus West Virginia defense, Mountaineers offense versus the Jayhawk defense, and then we'll get to some key to victory and the score prediction for me here on this episode. And of course, we'll wrap up as we always like to with a look around the Big 12. We'll make some picks in the Week 4 games as well to wrap up the episode. So that's what's on the docket for this one. And as you can see, going at it solo dolo, both Brad and Steven out on assignment this week. It's a busy week. I've been busy for all three of us. That's why this episode's coming a little bit later than what we typically put out our preview episodes, but that's all right. Still got it coming to you guys, and you'll still have your live stream here at the end of the week. And plus, channel members here at the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel can come watch the game watch party with us on Saturday. Since this is an away game, we'll have that for Almost Heaven members of the channel there. So consider hitting that join button over on our YouTube channel or on our YouTube channel homepage to get that bonus WVU football content, things like that, plus film reviews, player grades, snap counts, all of those fun things. But we do appreciate you tuning in here on YouTube either way. And if you can't support us that way, you can support us fast, easy, and free just by hitting that thumbs up button. That helps a ton with that YouTube algorithm. Being sure you're subscribed to the channel so you get these videos directly into your feed and interact with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this game against Kansas. Throw them in the comment section. We really appreciate those interactions. Also appreciate you guys that listen on the audio side. You can listen to this episode on any podcast platform. If you're listening there, leave us a rating. That helps out on that side of things. And of course, shout out to our friends over at WVSportsNow.com for hosting our episodes on their website as well. We really appreciate that. So with the house cleaning out of the way, with a bit of the opener of the game out of the way, let's get into it. Let's talk about this one. West Virginia opening Big 12 play against the Kansas Jayhawks. All right, so before we get into each side of the ball here, of course, Kansas, do want to preface by talking about their head coach, Lance Leipold, back for his 5th season. He's won pretty much everywhere he's been, and the turnaround he's done at Kansas has been impressive. We saw, how many coaches, 3, 4 cycle in and out of there, couldn't get it done, including some coaches that have been really good throughout the career, guys like Les Miles. But Lance Leipold was finally the guy, turned things around, made Kansas into, a winning program, a competitive program now, and they look to continue that here in his 5th season. And this game, I think, should be noted. Something to note here before we get into the matchups on each side is Kansas crowd might be rocking a little bit extra because they're going to be in a very nice stadium. It's going to be their first Big 12 home game in their brand new stadium they just renovated. Looks very nice. So hopefully, that will be something that West Virginia can, hang their hat on maybe in the future, right? If it goes in their favor, hey, we was there when Kansas played their first Big 12 game in their new stadium, and we came out on the right end of it. Let's hope that that's the way history tells the story. But we'll break down the matchups here throughout the episode, and I'll let you guys know how I feel about that being possible towards the tail end when I give my prediction. So now that we've prefaced Kansas and West Virginia, as we talked about the 14th meeting, both teams coming in 2-1. We know the head coach. We know it's Kansas' first game in their new stadium. So let's talk a little bit about each side of the football here. Let's kick things off with Kansas's offense against West Virginia's defense, because this definitely going to be a key matchup of the game. Zach Alley's defense been very impressive through 3 games. We need that to continue now that we're hitting conference play, because if this game can, kind of be a barometer for us to show us if Zach Alley's defense is for real, even once we hit conference play, because if it is, it's going to keep us in a lot of football games, and we're going to have a chance down the stretch of a lot of football games, because I truly believe in Zach Alley's defense. But what is their task in this game? They're going up against a Jim Zabrowski Kansas offense. Jim Zabrowski in his second year there as the offensive coordinator, but he was co-offensive coordinator last year. This is the first year that he's kind of had the reins all to himself. 4th year at Kansas overall. I believe he was quarterbacks coach solely before that. We know that when Kansas offense really took off, of course, was when Lance Leipold brought Andy Kotelnicki in there. After Andy Kotelnicki left, went to Penn State, where he's been the past couple of seasons. Kansas brought in Jeff Grimes, who had been at Baylor for a long time there, and tried to make him the offensive coordinator. That didn't really work out well. Last year, he was co-OC with Jim Zabrowski, and Zabrowski just takes over the sole duties this year after they decide to kind of take it away from Jeff Grimes. And what I've noticed here is going back and looking at some of the stuff from their first 3 games is that with Zabrowski in charge this year, seems like they've really went back to a lot of the same principles and concepts, things that Andy Kotelnicki was having success with, which makes sense because I believe Zabrowski was with Kotelnicki and Lance Leipold all those years at Buffalo and all those and a lot of those other stops as well. So it makes sense that he would try and do something similar. So we're going to see a lot of motions, a lot of shifts, a lot of the misdirection stuff, try and catch you off guard that Kansas did when Kotelnicki was there. They're trying to do a lot of that again now under Jim Zabrowski, so something to look for in their offense, which currently some numbers, they're averaging 423 yards per game through the first 3 games and also 36 points per game through the first 3 games. Signal caller, the trigger man of that offense, back yet again. Seems like he's been there forever. I know last year seemed like he kind of took a little bit of a step back, but I think he was just really, taking some time to come back from that back injury that he had suffered the year prior. This year, thus far through 3 games, looks more like his old self, his dangerous self. And of course, we're talking about Jalen Daniels, the Kansas quarterback. Through 3 games thus far this season, 679 yards with a 72% completion rating. So, been accurate with the football. That also shows in his TD to interception ratio, where he has 9 touchdowns versus only 2 interceptions. Know he can hurt you with his legs as well. Has 90 yards rushing and a touchdown on the ground this season. Also, speaking of on the ground, that's where Kansas has really hurt you a lot in years past. They've had some talented running backs. Luckily, we don't have to deal with Devin Neal this year. He's, of course, moved on to the NFL. But unfortunately, they do still have Daniel Highshaw, who's been there forever. Now, in his final season, has taken over as the sole lead back for this Kansas program. Not a lot of yards in the first 3 games, actually. Only 169, but he is averaging over 5 yards per carry. So still a threat. Got to watch out for Daniel Highshaw on the ground. Now, when Jalen Daniels does go to the air, we know, like I talked about, a lot of shifts, a lot of motions, and they're really going to try and hurt you with, the run game and then build off of that with their play action looks, off of their option game, off their run game. And when they do, we know that they'll involve the tight ends a lot, so be on the lookout for that. They'll sneak those guys out of there, some block and release stuff. They'll get catches with that. Their tight ends will be a weapon in this scheme yet again. But the main 2 receivers that you need to worry about in this Kansas offense are both transfers, guys they brought in, one of which came from Alabama, that being Emmanuel Henderson Jr., who has 12 receptions, 183 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's good for over 15 yards per reception throughout their first 3 games, so watch out for him. And then the other one is a transfer from Ball State, really talented, looks the part in Cam Pickett, 10 catches, 124 yards and 3 touchdowns for him. So he's averaging over 12 yards per reception as well. So both their number 1 targets averaging at least 12 yards per reception. However, we got to keep an eye on Cam Pickett, not only in the game, but to make sure that he plays. He is battling through a little bit of a nagging injury issue right now. So we'll see if he's able to go. As far as this matchup is concerned, I think that I like this better knowing that West Virginia has faced, I don't want to say a guy similar to Jalen Daniels because he's his own weapon and his own beast, and they're a little bit different, right? But Parker Navarro and how Parker Navarro hurt West Virginia, West Virginia should be able to learn from that and maybe contain Jalen Daniels a little bit better, especially because I felt like Zach Alley had a really good game plan for that game. Guys were getting free runs at the quarterback, but they were just coming in out of control, and he would sidestep and make a miss and then go make a play with his legs. So I think that shouldn't be an issue now because they've kind of learned their lesson now. So that should hopefully help them contain Jalen Daniels. Uh, their run game, Daniel Highshaw is a good player. Don't get me wrong. But the fact that he's only ran for 169 yards in 3 games shows me that they're probably passing the ball a little bit more than they're running it. And also, our run defense has been really stout throughout our first 3 games. I would argue that that's particularly been probably our best part of our defense has been our front line there. They've done a great job, so I'm not too worried about that. If Cam Pickett's not healthy, I feel even better about the matchups here. But overall, West Virginia's secondary has been a strength. It's been greatly improved. I think Michael Coates has allowed, 1 or 2 receptions. He's only been targeted a couple times. Didn't allow a catch at all last game. He's been solid. Haven't heard his name a ton because teams are staying away from him. He's been so solid. Jason Chambers has been there in coverage. Darian Lewis has a couple interceptions in the first 3 games. So I think our secondary can hold up, and particularly I think they'll be able to hold up because I think our pass rush can be a weapon in this game. It's going to be nice to see the scheme battle between Zabrowski and Zach Alley, but look at how good our pass rush has been. We're top 3 in the nation in sacks, and this game is going to be the debut of Jamori Robinson, who had a ton of sacks last season, a conference defensive player of the year. We're adding to the mix of a team that's been racking up a ton of quarterback pressure. So hopefully that should only improve things. And I really kind of like this matchup for us. I think, like I said, I'll take Zach Alley and the way he schemes up defense and his, brain up against anyone in a game plan setting pretty much. So I think our defense can perform in this game. So that's kind of my thoughts on this side. Now let's flip it over. Let's talk about the other side of the ball. Another important matchup, of course, is West Virginia's offense against the Kansas defense. And when we talk about the Kansas defense, they bring back DK McDonald for his second season. And when you look at his scheme, I don't want to call him a poor man Zach Alley or anything like that, but they just do similar things as far as trying to keep you off balance, keep you guessing with not knowing how they're going to line up defensively. They may come out with a 3-down look sometimes. They may come out with a 4-down look sometimes. They're going to switch up how many linebackers they have on the field, how many safeties, what their coverage show looks like. All of that can change game to game, even series to series. And in Zach Alley's case, play to play even as well. So DK McDonald, I think, is a good defensive coordinator. This is going to be a good challenge for our offensive line, particularly with how they'll mix up the looks on us a lot. They're going to have to really be sound in their communication, sound in their assignments here. And I'm sure that we've kind of probably simplified the game plan for them heading into this one because of how much Kansas switches things up defensively. But as far as standout players on that Kansas defense, I think one of these will be a very familiar name to Mountaineer Nation, and that is probably what's been the best player on Kansas defense thus far. And funny enough, it's a former Mountaineer. Almost forgot that he transferred there, but Trey Lathan has been a very big force on the Kansas defense since moving there. He's number 19 for us, but he's wearing number 4 now at Kansas, and he has 25 tackles through the first 3 games of the season. He's the only Kansas player that has 20 or more tackles on the season. So that shows, how much he's been all over the field for the Jayhawk defense. We'll definitely have to, get a blocker on him, get a body on him because he can, cause havoc. We saw it when he was here, and he's been racking up a ton of tackles there at Kansas this year thus far. Then they also still have another really good weapon at the linebacker spot with Bengali Kamara back for his senior season. Thus far through their first 3 games, has a sack and a forced fumble already. And then the defensive secondary, to me, I think the best player that I've seen there is Lyric Rawls. He kind of leads that secondary, has 1 interception, and has the best coverage grade in that secondary as well with a 77.3 grade. So how does West Virginia attack this Kansas defense? Well, we know what we want to do. We want to run the football. We want to go fast. We want to use this tempo. So I think, in our last away game, we saw that we weren't able to, really get a chance to get into our tempo, get a chance to get into a rhythm offensively, too many 3 and outs. Yet again, it's a case where I hope we learned our lesson from that game. And this game, we do a little bit better job of finding ourselves and finding our rhythm. I think we found a little bit of our identity last game offensively. So that should hopefully help lead into this game. I just got to, I know it was a physical game against Pitt for one. Kansas having the bye week, kind of worries me with them having that extra week to prepare for things, plus us being a little bit beat up on the offensive side, injury update. Doesn't sound like Jacob Barrick, one of our tight ends, is going to go, and that worries me because he's our best blocking tight end. Grayson Barnes, our best receiving tight end. Barnes is really going to have to step up his blocking in this game. Guys like Ryan Ward and perhaps Noah Braham as well might be counted upon to come in and help block for our run game, because I think West Virginia's plan in this one has to be to get that run game going again and be able to sustain some offense. That has to be what they do in this one. We saw how ineffective things were against Ohio. We weren't able to have a run game because, as I said when we talked about the first matchup, I trust Zach Alley's defense. I think they'll keep us in this game, keep us close, give us plenty of chances. But we need our offense to capitalize on these chances in this road game, unlike how things went in that first one when we went on the road and lost to Ohio. Here, when we're beginning Big 12 play and beginning on the road, we need a better showing from our offense. So I'm hoping just more consistent play. I'm hoping the offensive line continues the improvement that they showed, from game 2 to game 3. Hopefully that wasn't an aberration. Hopefully they continue on that path, and we'll see what happens here moving forward. But I will say, when I was looking at, the Kansas PFF grades, they do have some standout players on the defense. I named a few of them there. There's some more you could highlight as well. But when I looked at the run defense grades, a lot of the higher run grades, defense grades are, Trey Lathan. They are Bengali Kamara, some of those other guys. Their defensive linemen are a little bit further down there. So maybe it's a game where our offensive line can make some hay, get a push up front there, get our run game going. And if so, I think we'll have, an opportunity to get some things rolling in the passing game as well. Could be a big game for Cam Vaughn, big game for Rodney Gallagher and Grayson Barnes again. I think that those guys showcased that they could really get it done last game. Grayson Barnes is really someone I'm keeping an eye on in this game, not only because he's kind of had a breakout performance receiving-wise the past couple of games, but with Jacob Barrick out, we're really going to need him to step up to help our run game in blocking situations as well. So I think it's a big game for him to perform. I think it's a big game yet again for our offensive line to be tested, to prove that it wasn't just a fluke, that they came out, hyped up for a rivalry game, to prove that our run game is continuing to improve. And let's hope Ty Edwards, he was a little bit banged up in that one as well. Need him healthy. Need him to come out, maybe not get 25 carries, but if we can get, 15 to 18, I think that would be great. Clay Ash, mix him in when we can. And let's see if Sincere Bowers can get a couple touches, and yet to see him break a big play since that opener. This would be a great game for it. So let's hope West Virginia's offense can get going. I think this matchup, to me, because of some of the injury concerns, because of the extra time for Kansas to scheme things up a little bit, maybe a little bit more of a push, a little bit more of a wash, if you want to call it that, whereas I feel like West Virginia's defense could have a little bit of an advantage over the Kansas offense. This one's a little bit more of a toss-up on this side of the ball, in my opinion. So there's a look at the matchups on each side, which leads us to final two little categories here in the preview segment before we wrap up with our look around the Big 12. Appreciate you guys tuning into this one and listening to me drone on and babble on by myself here on this episode. Hope you guys are still enjoying episode 229 here, our Kansas preview. With that being said, key to victory. I kind of touched on it a little bit there, because I think the key to victory in this one is running the football and sustaining drives. Like I touched on when I was talking about our defense, I think that Zach Alley is going to do enough to keep us in this game. Our offense is going to have plenty of opportunities. I think that Jalen Daniels, as much as he looks improved and looks more like his old self this year, he is still someone that is turnover prone potentially. I think we'll get at least one interception in this game. That's my prediction. We've been forcing a bunch of fumbles, putting balls on the ground, which haven't been able to recover them. So could get at least one fumble. I think we'll get at least 2 turnovers. We need our offense to take care of the football, but more importantly, we need to score when we get those turnovers. That absolutely destroyed us in that game against Ohio, getting all those turnovers that we got, those 3 interceptions, and not scoring any points off of them, not even getting a first down. So for me, the key to victory in this one, I think the defense will show up. If we want to win, though, we need the offense to show up, sustain drives, and to be able to run the football. So that's on, the running backs that we have in there, the committee that we've been using. Ty Edwards coming off a big game. Let's not have a letdown. This could be a letdown spot for the entire team. We need the offense to continue. We need them to continue to stair-step this thing up, right? Continue to climb up with it. We don't want to see, a little plateau here in this one after they had such a good performance last game, especially compared to where it was in game 2. So my key to victory in this one, we need to find a way to run the football, at least enough to keep them off balance, to set up maybe some big potential play action passing plays, run the football enough to sustain drives. sustaining the drives. That's the major key in this one. Let's move the football, keep our defense, give them a little bit more of a rest than we did on our last away game. Run the football, sustain drives. That's the key for me. Which brings us to, drum roll, please. That's a terrible sound effect, I know. But score prediction time, always my favorite part of the preview and prediction episodes. And this one I think is interesting because situationally, I think a lot of things do favor Kansas. With us just coming off a high emotional, high intensity game, a rivalry game that we came from behind and won. That's not only physical, that's emotional right there. A lot of that takes a toll, no matter what you say, it does. So, situationally, that favors Kansas. I think the fact that they are coming off a bye week before having to play us after we had to play that tough rivalry game favors them as well, unfortunately, situationally. And then, of course, as we talked about in the Open, it being their first game or Big 12 home game in their new stadium gives them a little bit maybe of a boost as well. But maybe it's superstition because I did pick us to win in the brawl and then we went on to win that one. I think I got a good feeling that West Virginia can find a way again. And I don't know what it is because it seems like a lot of people, a lot of, betting sites are doubting West Virginia. Depending on where you look, it's at least, 12.5-point favorites for Kansas, which I think is crazy. I think it was as high as 14 at one point. You look at the ESPN FPI matchup predictor, they give Kansas an 81% chance to win the game. But I think that could potentially be something that Rich Rod uses to motivate this team. Zach Alley uses to motivate this team. Look, we went out. We had a big come from behind win. We won our rival game. No one said that we can win. And still no one thinks that you can win. Still, everyone's counting us out. Everyone thinks we're going to be one of the worst teams in this conference. Look at the spread. Look at the predictions. No one thinks you're going to win. They don't think you have a chance. And Rich Rod and company maybe use this to provide a little extra motivation, get this team, perked back up in what could be a potential letdown spot after a big rivalry game. So despite a lot of things favoring Kansas, pair that with my own superstition and the fact that I think Zach Alley's defense will hold their own, force a few turnovers, get the stops that we need, and I'm expecting our offense to have a much better showing on the road than they did in that game against Ohio. West Virginia's going to find a way. We're going to get it done. I think Zach Alley holds them below 30 points, and I think we find a way to score right around that. I'm going to give West Virginia the win, 28-24 over Kansas. Not only do we cover that long spread, we win outright on the road, start Big 12 playoff 1-0. Hopefully I'm speaking it into existence. You guys know I'm throwing the gold and blue glasses on, as we like to say, for this pick, but I'm always going to keep it positive here on the show. And also, like I said, mix in a little superstition. I picked us to win last week. We won. Let's keep it rolling. If we win, maybe I'll have to just keep picking us as long as we keep winning, right? Hey, let's keep it rolling. Let's hope West Virginia gets it done. But that's my prediction. 28-24, West Virginia wins it on the road at Kansas. We'll see what happens. Either way, we'll come back here and talk about it afterwards on our Kansas review and reaction episode. So that will put the Kansas and West Virginia portion of the show in the rear view. Let's go around the Big 12, though, to wrap up this episode. Take a look at Week 4. I'm going to make some picks in the Week 4 games, which there are a few good ones here. So let's get into it. It starts off on Friday night. Tulsa at Oklahoma State, 7:30 Eastern kick. It is in Stillwater to be televised on ESPN. I don't know much about Tulsa this year. Oklahoma State needs a bounce back in a big way, though. I'm going to pick Oklahoma State. I'm going to go with Gundy on this one. I know he's on the very hot seat right now, it seems like. But, man, they're playing at home, a Friday night game on ESPN. They got to get it done against Tulsa. Give me Oklahoma State to get it done finally. Then we'll bring it to our Saturday slate. We got some rivalry games. We got some really good games mixed in here. We'll lead it off with one of those rivals, SMU, TCU, playing in Fort Worth at noon on ESPN2. Good game here. Potential good matchup. I'm going to roll with the Big 12, though, over the ACC. Long-time ACC power SMU. Give me TCU, though. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the game Sonny Dykes got kicked out of last year, right? Was the SMU game, if I'm not mistaken. So if that is the case, that's another thing that he probably wants to get back for that. I wants to get his lick back for that one. And I really just like the way TCU's playing. I think they're a contender. Josh Hoover's really good. Give me the Horned Frogs in that one. We're going to skip over that next game because that's going to be our game of the week. We're going to come back to that one. We have UNC, Chapel Bill, heading to the Bounce House to take on UCF, 3:30 on Fox. Interesting game here with North Carolina and UCF. Scott Frost versus Bill Belichick. I think I'm going to roll with the Big 12 yet again. Maybe just throwing a little conference bias in this. But, it is in the bounce house. Not an easy place to play. Can be a tough atmosphere. Give me UCF to get the win over the ACC as well. Let's go Big 12 over ACC again. UCF gets it done. Scott Frost gets a big win over a power conference foe in North Carolina and the Fighting Chapel Bills. We talked about WVU in Kansas already. 6 p.m. Eastern kick. Fox Sports 1. Arizona State and Baylor. Really good game here. I was deciding between this one and Utah, Texas Tech for game of the week. I think either one is a really good candidate. Two really great conference games to start off your early conference play. But this one's in Waco, 7:30 Eastern on Fox. Arizona State was my pick early on this year to win the conference. Waco's a tough place to play, but I still don't. I think Baylor's offense is good. They have really good players. They have Triggs, a great tight end. Cameron's a good receiver. They got a really good running back as well. They got good quarterback play from Robertson. But I'm still not sold on their defense yet. And I think Arizona State, they lost Scatterby, but have you seen Raleek Brown running the ball? He looks great. They also have Udo from Army. Sam Levitt's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country. Jorden Tyson, in my opinion, is a top 3 receiver in the nation probably. So I think Arizona State will be able to score on Baylor. It's just, can they get the stops they need, battling that home crowd? I'm going to go on a limb and say they do. I'm going to ride with what was my preseason pick in the conference. Sun Devils, get it done on the road at Baylor. Give me Arizona State. BYU heads on the road to East Carolina, going to Greenville to play a night game, 7:30 on ESPN2. Interesting. Mountaineers aren't the only team going to play, at some group of 6, group of 5, whichever the hell it is anymore, competition. But Steven may not be on the episode, but even not being on the episode, he will come to my house when he listens to the episode and kick my ass if I pick against BYU, even though they're on the road at ECU. But I also think that they'll win it. I think they'll win it going away, to be honest with you. So give me the Cougars. As Stephen always says, it's a pro BYU podcast. So we got to roll with BYU there in that one. The nightcap on Saturday will be Colorado playing in Boulder against Wyoming, 10:15 Eastern kick on ESPN. I think Colorado gets it done. Wyoming's not a bad team, but Colorado playing at home, late night game. Give me the Buffaloes. I'm going heavy Big 12 influence this week, heavy Big 12 influence. But game of the week, to wrap up our Around the Big 12 segment here in week 4 and get close to putting a bow on episode 229, our Kansas preview and predictions. The Red Raiders of Texas Tech go to take on the Utah Utes there. Noon kick. I think this is the big noon kickoff game, if I'm not mistaken. So it is going to be on Fox. Both of these teams look like, not only contenders for the conference, this could potentially even be like a game that gets rematched in the conference title. That's how these two teams look early on this season. Utah, we knew that they were going to have defense. We know that that's coming with Kyle Whittingham. They have a really, really good offensive line as well, and they've brought in a good offensive coordinator and a good quarterback in Dampier, who's also the quarterback of my fantasy team, so maybe I'm a little bit biased there. Texas Tech, though, and the money they spent looks like it's paying off. They've got a lot of studs they brought in to help with that defense. They still got Baron Morton and the weapons they have on offense. But they're going to play at Utah. And as much as Steven's going to be happy that I picked BYU, I better whisper this one because I'm going to pick Utah. And I don't want him to know about it. Hopefully he doesn't come over and kick my ass again. But, man, I don't know. I'm going to be honest, though. No, all jokes aside, I'm not a Utah fan. We talked about it extensively last year. We didn't think they'd come in and dominate. We thought they'd have a down year. They did. As much as I thought that last year, I unfortunately think this year they're going to have a pretty good season. They finally got a really, what seems like an explosive offense to go with that good defense. And plus, it wouldn't be bad for my fantasy team for Dampier to have a good game. So let's pick Utah. Let's pick Utah. But we got to do it quietly so Mike Honcho, a.k.a. Steven, doesn't hear. But that's who I'm rolling with in the game of the week here on episode 229, guys. And that will pretty much do it for this one. Accomplished everything we wanted to. We wanted to preview the matchups there in the game against Kansas, provide my prediction there and my key to victory. Got that done. And then, of course, took a look around the Big 12, made some picks in those games. We'll see how those turn out on our Kansas review and reaction show. Look out for that coming out on either Sunday or Monday, most likely Monday. But as I stated earlier in the episode, we will have a watch party for channel members, which that's the join button over on the video description on the video here on our channel, or you can come to our YouTube channel homepage to find it. You get the game watch parties for away games. You get film reviews there at the Almost Heaven level. And then even if you're at the Wild and Wonderful level, you can still get player grades, snap counts, priority comments, behind the scenes content. A lot of fun stuff there if you're a huge WVU football fan. But if you can't support us that way, which we do really appreciate our channel members helping keep this mic recording and that camera rolling, but you can also support us fast, easy, and free. Like I said, hitting that thumbs up button on the video helps out more than you can realize with the YouTube algorithm. Be sure you subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on all the WVU football news we try and bring you here on the Country Roads Webcast, and share your thoughts on the game or any of those Big 12 matchups now that we've heard a little bit of talk about those in the comment section. We appreciate those interactions. Shout out to you guys that listen on the audio side. We appreciate that as well on any podcast platform you listen to. Leave us a rating. That helps us out. And yet again, thank you to our friends over at WVSN for hosting our episodes over on their site. Other than that, before we get to that watch party, we will be having the live stream coming up on either Thursday or Friday night. Stay tuned to our social media there to find out which day. We'll let you guys know whether it'll be a Thursday or Friday. But one of those two nights, we'll do a live stream where you guys will have a chance to share your predictions for the game, ask any questions you have ahead of the game as well. So we'll take your predictions for this game coming up in our live stream, which we do every week. So there's a little bit of a quick summary of the weekly content you can find here. If you hit that subscribe button, you'll have something coming at you pretty much every day, especially if you're a channel member as well. But with that out of the way, really looking forward to this game, to seeing how West Virginia hopefully continues to improve after they had a really good showing in the backyard brawl. Want to see us start off Big 12 play on the right foot, so I hope it's a great competitive football game. And most of all, I'm just hoping to see us perform better on the road than we did in our first road contest this season. And I certainly think we will. Really excited about this game and hoping for a really good outcome. With that being said, appreciate you guys tuning into this episode. Know you guys are looking forward to this as well. Hard to believe it's already game 4 of the young West Virginia football season. Flying through this thing, but really enjoying the Rich Rod 2.0 era already. And we'll get even more enjoyment if we can get a big win on the road on Saturday, guys. Let's hope for it. I'll talk to you guys soon in the near future. Appreciate you guys tuning into this one. As always, I'm Jorden Cruz. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those